success is learning the 3 R's. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. Put up your hand if you've been told that. Well, Andrew argues, and he will present today, that there's a 4th R. And that stands for relationships. And while reading, writing, and arithmetic are important, relationships, the quality of our relationships, probably trumps all. So put up your hand if you think that the quality of your relationship with your teacher impacts your learning. Good. Put up your hand if you think the quality of your relationships with your classmates and peers impact the quality of your learning. Yeah. Okay. So Andrew's here to talk about empowering through relationships, and he specifically addresses relationships between youth and the need for mentoring and positive relationships. So, give him a big hand.
Bonjour, Andrew Dijnakas, Mishkinia Godam, London, Nunjaba. My name is Andrew Judge. I'm from London, Ontario, born and raised, and in Turtle Clan, Anishinaabe. I wanted to explain a couple of things before I get kicked off here. And one is what I just did around the room. I was going to ask the question back if that was marijuana. And no, it wasn't. But that's a very common question when smudging a place. What that is one of our 4 sacred medicines. And does anybody know the other 3? Sage, cedar, sweetgrass, and tobacco. So each of these are used in ceremony as well as in healing. What I just did there is I made not only this space safe for my spirit, but I made it safe for each one of you, and I brought our minds together. And so, expressively what that does is it makes us all come as a cohesive unit. And this is all what I'll be talking about in relationship building. I also want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. It is a pleasure for me to be here. I was telling, I went to high school just over there, and I wasn't the greatest kid, but like I'm going to talk about, relationships changed my life, changed who I am, and that to me is empowerment. I'm going to explain this slide a little bit. Okay, I'm glad we have a pointer, it's key. So, these symbols you see here, they're actually developed by youth members of the 3 First Nations communities that are closest to London. Does anybody know what those are? Come on, somebody has to know. Chippewa, Munsee, and Oneida nations. So there's 3 nations represented in a very small area, about 25 minutes outside of London. Very few people realize that. I was asked a question once, is there a fence around the reserve? And it was, I don't know, funny at the time. It's kind of annoying. No, there's not a fence around the reserve, and I've met some incredible people there. I've worked with some incredible youth, and they developed this. And the 4th symbol you'll see, it represents the urban nations. Many of you probably realize that 60% of First Nations people are living in urban settings. You'll probably notice that the title has been changed. I'll tell you, I worked a lot of hours developing this presentation, and one of the things I was looking at was power. And it's such a challenging word to define, and it's a challenging word to speak about. And I got to the conclusion, I realized that, I'm not going to talk about power at all. This is not about me in a power position speaking to you in a non-power position. This is about uniting our minds, uniting our ideas, our thoughts together. And so, rather than talk about power, I'm going to talk about empowerment. And hopefully through this presentation, one of my objectives is for at least one of you to feel empowerment or empowered. And this is a personal journey, but also it's a combination of my work that I do. I work at the Center for Prevention Science. We work with the 4th R, as was mentioned. The 4th R is relationships. Who's heard reading, writing, arithmetic? Yeah, What about, who's ever heard relationships thrown in the mix? Very few of you. I'm not surprised, but how important does anybody want to comment our relationships to your everyday survival? Very. That's great. That's a good start. Okay, extremely important. Now, in this presentation, I'm going to do a combination of my traditional teachings, but also I'm going to stick to some of the literature. I developed this presentation, and it's a test almost, because part of me feels out the crowd, and I want to know what you guys are thinking and feeling as I move forward. But also, I have to stick to some of the key concepts that I want to get out to you. And so for that, I've written a bit down, and I'm going to read a bit of that. So, I've never done this before, and these are a lot of firsts today. I'm going to start with the conclusion. If this works.
Up here, Andrew.
Okay. Women are our best medicine. Okay. So, can somebody please read this loudly? I'm going to take this.
Can we all read it together?
Here, you read.
Chef. The conclusion would be that the political, social, philosophical problems of our day is not to try and liberate the individual from the state and from the state's institutions, but to liberate us both from the state and from the type of individualization which is linked to the state. We have to promote new forms of subjectivity through the refusal of this kind of individuality, which has been imposed on us for several centuries. Michel Foucault.
I come from a philosophy background, and in reading some of Foucault's writing on power, this is the quote that I want to develop this presentation around. Each of us, from the minute we are conceived, is limited. And we're limited by our human capacity, but we're also limited by the infrastructure, psychological knowledge infrastructure that exists around us, and also the physical infrastructure like this building. That is very different from what First Nations people experienced. And so when we're asked to relate to these things, it is a serious challenge. And so I'm going to speak about that as well. Do you want... Here. Oh look, pass that on. Okay, great. Thank you. Now, I was going to tell a really boring story, and I was reading it over as I started writing it, and I just thought, you know, that's not what I want to get across in this presentation. So instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to explain a little bit about who I am, but I'm also going to show you a little bit about who I am. How I came into this position, literally, was luck, a lot of luck, a little bit of my own determination, and a lot dependent on the relationships I had built. So when I came out to speak to a group of youth at a transition conference, I was empowered by their energy. These youth are our future. We're still youth, and we have so much to offer. And I thought, rather than tell this boring story about what happened, all these things, I said, I'm going to show you how I got this position. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So now that I have some more of your attention, I want to tell you guys a little bit how my life changed. And it has to do with coming into this knowledge, which was foreign to me when it started. And it has to do with the youth who empower me, but also the elders, the community leaders, and each one of you with the gifts. Because each one of us in my tradition are told we have gifts. I don't want you guys to feel because I'm in this position that you're down here and I'm up here. Rather the opposite. I hope that through this presentation, and I love when I first saw how this room was set up, that I could stand here, down here, and speak to you up here. Because that's how I feel about people. That's how I feel about my culture. I'm here. It's up here. And that, to me, is empowerment. After I did that backflip at the conference, my phone rang and I was offered a job. And it was a great moment for me. It is the reason why I went down the path of doing a master's in Aboriginal education. There was a lot of women at the center where I work, there still is, and each one of them was doing their master's or their PhD. And here I am, a lowly philosopher, thinking, I think I can do that too. And so I did. And I'll tell you, I did extremely well in the programs, and it has a lot to do with the way that it has a lot to do with those people supporting me. This painting that I did right here was one of my final course projects. And without the support of professors who will allow you to do that, and I'll tell you, challenge your professors. Because when you're allowed to express yourself, not like this and, you know, all that structure that's always put around you, but when you're allowed to express yourself, when you're free, you get to do things like that. And for me, the experience of that was way more than any paper could have accomplished. Today I'm going to talk about balance. It is our tradition to live balanced, healthy, whole lives. Education teaches us a linear path, and I owe a lot to it. It's a lot of the reason why I can speak these words to you, and a lot of the reason why I can understand the words you speak to me, and so on and so forth, and how that web moves outward. But each of these things have a balance: generosity, love, humility, truth. These are teachings that our people live by. And Anishinaabe, these are our 7 grandfather teachings. One is missing. Does anybody know what it is? Honesty. Truth and honesty are 2 of our teachings. But the most important teaching I want to talk to you about today is humility. At one point, I did not live my life in a humble way. Why? Well, it had a lot to do with the social structure around me. I was a national champion in long jump. I also was nationally ranked in 3 other events. I thought that made me who I was. I thought that defined me. But I quickly realized none of that defines who I am. It's what's in here that defines who you are. What's up here that defines who you are. And how you use that to empower others. I also wanted to talk about the other side, because people often leave it out. That exists within each of us. That potential. How do we use it though? How do we put it out there for others to experience? And I know some of you, I can feel it, are thinking about what I'm saying right now, deeply. And that's so important. Okay? Each of these things, arrogance, hate, greed, thoughtlessness, disobedience, each of these manifests in our lives in some way, at some point. How do you balance them? Well, I'm not here to give you the answers. I'm just here to let you think about these things.